middle school, so I just wanted to touch base with everybody really quickly. So this week, we're running Tuesday through Thursday. That'll be every week after this week, and then I'll be available for office hours 11 to 2, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. Also, starting today, which is Monday, I'll have up a free read, so I'll be reading a book. It's called The Leaving. It's a mystery book, and that's what's going to happen right after what I finished saying right now. So that'll be up Monday through Friday every week after, starting today. And once we finish that book, if we finish that book, we'll read another one. So, and that's just something extra for fun. If you feel like doing that, then you can, but you don't have to. But I'll have that up, and that's going to immediately follow this video, and then I'll have one video up every single week. So, also, this is an important note, and I'll put a little bit in the description, just so you guys remember, but we are going to be counting for participation, which is the most important part for your grade, is making sure you're participating. So to make sure that you get counted for participation, because sometimes it doesn't show up when you guys view the videos, it doesn't show that you viewed it. So make sure that you're liking the post on Dojo. So make sure that you like the post, that way I know that you saw it. And again, that's super, super important, because that's a major part of your grade, is getting graded for participating. So right after this, I'm going to have the free read. So if you want to listen to the free read, then keep on watching. If you don't, then that's all the information you need for this week. So hopefully I'll see you at office hours tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. Hey everybody, we're going to be starting on the free read. My dog's been barking a lot tonight, and I really can't do anything about it at this point, so hopefully it's not too distracting for you. So what we're going to be reading is this book called The Leaving. It's a mystery book. This is all for fun. Has nothing to do with assignments or anything like that. Just something extra you can do. I'm not going to assign anything with it. It is a really interesting book. We're going to start by reading one part per day. There's 16 parts to this, so we should be done with it in 3 weeks. Probably when we read the last part, we'll read 2 parts at once. So I'm going to go ahead and read the description here really quickly, and I'll be doing this Monday through Friday. The description in this book says, 11 years ago, 6 kindergartners went missing without a trace. After all that time, the people left behind moved on, or tried to, until today. Today, 5 of those kids return. They're 16, and they're fine. Scarlett comes home and finds a mom she barely recognizes, and doesn't recognize the person she's supposed to be either, but she thinks she remembers Lucas. Lucas remembers Scarlett too, except they're entirely unable to recall where they've been or what happened to them. Neither of them can remember the 6th victim, Max, the only one who hasn't come back, which leaves Max's sister Avery wanting answers. She wants to find her brother, dead or alive, and isn't buying this whole memory loss story. But as details of the disappearance begin to unfold, no one is prepared for the truth. So as we can tell from this little synopsis here, these kindergartners went missing, 6 of them did, and then 11 years later, only 5 of them come back, and none of them supposedly can remember anything from when they went missing and what happened. So we're going to jump into reading this here. There's a little introduction before we get into the parts. The chapters are broken up by the characters, so different characters talking in every section. So that's a big part of what we're going to see here. I'm going to put it up. You should be able to see it on the screen, hopefully, so you can follow along. So it says, the lights hurt my eyes, and Mommy is crying and not looking at me. I'm on her hip with Woof Woof between us. I'm wearing my monkey pajamas. I am supposed to be in bed. But Mommy and Daddy came into my room and turned on the light and said, Sweetie, we just need to do this thing. It's important. Then you can go right back to sleep. Daddy scooped me up and I grabbed Woof Woof because he goes where I go, especially if it's someplace important. Max isn't here. Max isn't in his fireman pajamas. Today was his first real day of kindergarten, and he didn't come home. I don't know why, and I'm afraid to ask because that is why Mommy has been crying. It started at the bus stop. The bus came, but Max wasn't on it. I want to ask, is Max dead, as Daddy puts me in my car seat. But I don't want to because I don't know what dead means, except that it's bad. Maybe kindergarten is bad too. Maybe it takes you away and makes moms and dads sad. The lights that hurt are on big cameras where we end up, in front of a big building that looks like it's made of gray Legos. They make night feel like day. They make me feel weird about my pajamas. There are men talking into big microphones, and I haven't seen my Minnie Mouse microphone in a while, and it seems like my toys have started disappearing. Did Max take them with him? Men are talking, like grown-ups with rules. Then Daddy is right next to me, and Mommy, with a microphone, lollipop close to his mouth. Fishy, camera eyes are pointed at us. He is saying, "Please bring back our son. Bring all the children back, unharmed." A woman screams, "My daughter said she was going on a trip to the leaving. Does anyone know what that means?" And Mommy looks at me like she's only just remembering that she's holding me, and I squeeze my thighs around her tight so that I can lean towards the microphone and the world gets quiet. So I say, I really want Max to come home. Mommy lets out a sound that I have no words for, and pulls my head into the space between her head and her soft parts, and pushes through all those shoulders and elbows and arms. Woof Woof is gone, and I think about screaming. Then I do. My father says here, and he has Woof Woof. I grab him and hug him, and his brown ears smell like sleep and apple juice. And my thumb that I suck, and I say, "Woof Woof, I thought I lost you." And he has these two eyes that are stitched out of thread, and they're wide apart, and I know he's not real, but for the first time ever, he looks so very sad. So sad that it hurts to look at him. I find Mommy's shoulder, and find my thumb, and close my eyes to make it all go away. So day 0, this is the first part, and we're going to read through day 0 until we get to day 1, and then we'll read day 1 tomorrow. Scarlet. Like being ripped open, mid-nightmare, breathless, in the center of a scream. Her hands went to the knot on the blindfold at the back of her neck. It was tied tight. It hurt her fingers to undo it. Then her eyes were freed. Night, heat, palm trees. Where are we? A girl. What's going on? A boy. She turned, saw the others, saw him. His name was something with an L. He took off running after the van, screaming, "Stop! Wait!" One taillight out, tires screeching, gone. Lucas. His name was Lucas. And hers? They had gotten out of that white van just a moment ago. 3 rows of seats, ripped leather upholstery that dug into her thigh. She had spent the journey fighting sleep, or something, and working hard not to tear the blindfold off. He'd said not to. It had been important to behave. Where are we? A girl. Sarah? Screaming. Who was that? Adam. His name was easy. Biblical. Paste. Who was driving? She studied him. His skin light brown, darker than the others. Then his clothes. Black shirt, black jeans, sneakers. Then Lucas's. Scar. He was staring at her. What scar? Where? Oh, Scarlet. Her name was Scarlet. You okay? He came closer. She studied her own clothes, swallowed to her wet throat. Why are we all wearing the same thing? I think I'm having a panic attack, Sarah said. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Just calm down. The first words out of Kristen's mouth. Why should I calm down? Again, Sarah, screaming. Something was poking Scarlett's hip. 2 of her fingers slid into her right jeans pocket. Found a folded piece of paper, took it out, unfolded it. What's that? Lucas asked. Lines. This way and that. A map. The others dug through their pockets. They all had maps. Her eyes found a red ink star on hers, and saw her nails were also red, worn and chipped, like blood leaking out of her cuticles. I think this is a map to my house, Lucas said. 33 Locust Place. Mine's not ringing any bells. Kristen flipped to the other side of her map and back. Maybe I got the wrong one? She wasn't chewing gum, but Scarlet pictured her that way. Always chewing. Scarlet turned. A slide, some swings, a gate. A thought about a cracked tooth, a boy. Had it been Lucas? No, but her feet had orders. Marched towards the playground. Stood at the center of the stringy blacktop. A warm wind woke an old swing. It squeaked and swung a ghost child. I've been here, Scarlet said to no one. The others came in too. She stopped at a red horse on a springy coil, the kind you sit on and rock. Sarah was all panic. Why don't we remember where we live? Good question. Better question, why don't we remember everything? The horse's eyes spied, crickets pulsed, the wind whipped palm trees into whispers. The world folded in. This was the cliff of Scarlet. No idea how she'd gotten here. The path behind her was wiped clean. She knew the others, and she could not think of a thing they'd done before this. Her mind clicked its blankness at her. 3 times. We must have been drugged, Adam said. He was taller and more muscular than Lucas, but somehow not as confident. Does anyone remember who was driving? Lucas asked, or where we were when we got into the van? Were we all at a party or something? Head shook. The wind died and swings froze, a still photograph. Adam said, I don't remember anything. It has to be a drug. It'll wear off, Lucas said. Another car drove by, extra lights under the body and bass-heavy music blasting. Scarlett's heart rattled and settled. Probably drugs. If not that, what? Sarah was shaking her head. I don't understand what's happening. She walked in small circles, rubbing her hands together. We should go home. Lucas held up his map. Someone will know what's going on. What if it's a trap? Sarah's eyes were drowning. Why would there be a trap? Kristen looked like she was about to hail a cab or hitch a ride, anything to get away from them. Adam said, why should we trust whoever dropped us off here and gave us these? He wagged his map around. There's no point standing here talking about it, is there? Kristen bent, retied her shoelace, and then stood. I guess I'll see you guys around. She started to walk off, but Lucas grabbed her. Wait, just wait. Why? We should have a plan, he said. We should, I don't know, get our story straight. There is no story, Kristen said. The story is we have no idea what's going on, so let's go home. What else is there to do? We'll go, yes. He released her arm. She rubbed it. But let's meet back here tomorrow night, like 8 o'clock, just to make sure we're okay. Just to make sure we've gotten some answers and snapped out of it, whatever it is. Scarlett was running into dead ends, circling back on herself. She was non-linear, looped, cycling back again and again to a memory of riding in a hot air balloon, happy, unafraid. So yes, definitely drugs. Had to be. Somebody will be able to explain, Lucas said. Somebody will know what happened. What if we can't get away tomorrow? Sarah's circling was surely making her dizzy. Maybe we should go to a hospital and get checked out. No hospitals, Lucas shook his head. Meet back here tomorrow night at 8, okay? And if that doesn't work out for whatever reason, we try the next night, same time. Sarah stopped circling. Everybody nodded except Scarlett, who looked at her map again. That red star. Was the address familiar or just generic? Scar, Lucas said. There was something between them, something extra, something else. Tomorrow night. Him again, okay? Lucas. He couldn't walk fast enough, pushed his calf muscles to the limit, stretched the very definition of walking. Not good enough. Started to run. Slowly at first, a jog, then faster, his sneakers slapping the pavement hard and loud. Faster and faster. The red star promised answers, relief, sleep, but he had to stop, bend, breathe, because the world spun. He was standing perfectly still, but he was on a carousel. White horse, golden reins, a bubblegum pink tongue. He was being carried around and around while the sun blazed off the ocean like white fire. He was holding on for dear life and loving it. He closed his eyes, shook his head and arms, started to walk again, focusing on a point far ahead to try to fight dizziness. It was annoying, the spinning. Carousel, horse, carousel, tongue, carousel, white fire. What carousel? He had no time for it. He took off again, overshot the address he was looking for, and had to double back, winded, to find the old red trailer house. But between there and here, there was, what would you even call it? A sculpture park? A monument? Hundreds, no thousands, of rocks formed a pathway that his feet started to follow. To the right, the path divvied off toward a rain-collected pool. To the left, some kind of tunnel. And ahead, more spiraling walkways and stairs and bridges. It felt ancient, sacrificial, like built on bones. Still, red star, answers. He kept walking, then spotted a figure way up back on the slope. A man in a lighted hat holding a chisel. His father had made this, was still making it. Dad, he called out, heard his uncertainty and confusion, and the figure in the distance turned, standing on a tall platform of stone. The man took his hat off, dropped it, and squinted into the night. Ryan sounded confused. No, Ryan was a boy, a brother. Lucas. Is this some kind of joke? Now angry. He started to approach and Lucas called out, "Not a joke." Why would he be joking? The man inspected him from the top of a ladder steep set of stone steps. "Oh my God, Lucas," and started to run down, and then he slipped, and as if in slow motion, tumbled and bumped, then landed headfirst with a dull smack on stone. Lucas ran to him. "Dad!" and bent to help him up and lifted his head. "Dad!" It was all warm and black all over his hand. "No," Lucas stood, backing away. "No, no, 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 no." Then one more try. "Dad." Only the hum of the night, distant cars, tree frogs, and a far-off motorboat. The sound of it echoed inside him, his body hollow. He stood, ran to the house, pounded on the door now until it opened. Ryan, but not a boy, grown. "Call an ambulance," Lucas barked. "Now." "Who the hell?" "Just do it." Then back to the body, ear to mouth, hands to chest, pumping. Then a minute later, "Ryan, get away from him. What did you do?" Hands grabbing Lucas by his shirt, hauling him to his feet. Fists, arms, legs, a pain in his jaw. "It's me, Lucas." Between gasps, they froze. Ryan stared. "What did you say?" "It's me," he said. "Lucas." Why would his own brother not recognize him? Then hands again, pushing him back and back and back, and his bones hitting stone, and Ryan saying, "Where have you been?" And their faces inches apart, Lucas's skull pressing to the wall, and spit from Ryan's mouth and Lucas's eye, when he said, "Where could you possibly—" Lucas, now sure his head would crack, have been. Avery. The phone rang, the clock glowed a red 12:45 a.m., but Avery wasn't going to make it out of bed for the landline. It was probably just Dad, all messed up about time zones on day one of the business trip out west. And anyway, it was spring break. The plan was to sleep as late as she could, then make her way to a lounge chair by the pool out back and spend the day there, watching boats go by in the bay. She'd practice for auditions next week, and maybe invite Sam and Emma over to hang out and swim. Whenever her dad was away on business, Avery liked to pretend that their house was hers alone. With her mom usually sleeping or shopping, it was pretty easy. Mom probably hadn't even heard the phone. She was a deep sleeper, right next to her pill bottles. But then it rang again and again. Avery heard her mom groan and then say, "Hello?" Then silence. Then, "Oh my God," like out of a horror movie. Then more oh my gods. Avery kicked off her comforter and went to her parents' room, where her mom was on her knees by the nightstand, crying, saying, "No, not yet. I should go. I should get ready." "Mom?" Avery crouched down, bracing for some kind of bad news about her dad. A plane crash, maybe, car accident. Get ready for what? Mom looked up and smiled and clutched the phone to her heart. They're back. Avery's grandparents had just taken a trip to New York, but that hardly seemed worthy of wee-hour phone calls. Who's back? Your brother, she said, the others. Then she pushed past Avery and said, "I'm going to be sick." But Avery had years ago stopped imagining it would ever happen, and certainly hadn't pictured it happening this way. Her holding her mom's hair as she retched up nothing at all. "Where are they?" Avery actually looked around the room. The shower dripped once. "How?" That was Peggy. Her mother wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "She said Kristen showed up at the house, and they're back. They're fine. She doesn't remember anything. She said none of them do. But they're fine. They turned up with just the clothes on their backs." Then, with her eyes wide and wild, she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I seriously can't believe it. Can you believe it?" Like a crazy person. Again. Avery followed as her mom walked downstairs and through the kitchen and stopped to fix her hair in the mirror that hung beside a massive floral arrangement. Mostly sunflowers that Rita had clipped from the front yard, then got an earful from Mom about. Her mom then turned and opened the door, and Avery half expected her brother to be there, too shy to knock after so many years. What would he even look like? Would she like him? They don't remember anything? He wasn't there. She and her mom stood on the porch for a while, looking up and down the road. Eventually, they sat down on the top step, still in pajamas, and waited. Scarlet. She walked and walked, panic receding some. Her mind was a void, but drip, drip, into it, glimpses. Her loop unwinding. The house over there had a small pond in the backyard. She knew where frogs hung out. She played there with that same boy from the playground. That road led to the beach, where there was a long walk to water. By the time she stood where the star was, she thought, yes, this was where she lived. Had lived. This was home. A pale yellow shingled house built up on tall wooden slits. A fence of white crisscross wood that ran down both sides. An old turquoise car parked under a carport made of more crisscrosses. Angry fists of hard grass punching out from the sandy front yard. There'd been a pink plastic flamingo in the garden right there at one point, right at the base of that palm tree. But not now. The whole place looked storm-beaten and crooked, like if she closed her eyes she could see wild winds, diagonal rain. She knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, more loudly, and a light went on inside. A middle-aged woman with a long bleached blonde ponytail opened the door. Her shirt, a hot pink polo with a tiny stitched white lantern, and the words Lamppost Bar and Grill. "Can I help you?" She was almost a stranger, but her voice was familiar, and her scent, cigarettes and vanilla, felt right. Mom? The word felt weird in Scarlett's mouth, garbled and foreign, and everything around them froze. Some sort of cosmic snapshot, and the air seemed to shake. The woman trembled, and her hand went to her mouth. Oh my God, Scarlett? Then screamed, "Scarlett!" Scarlett nodded, half wanting to deny it and not knowing why, and the woman grabbed her and collapsed into a hug. Then stiffened and pulled back, eyes scanning the yard, the road. Come in, she said, before someone sees." 10 minutes later, the woman had finally started to calm down, had finally stopped crying and rubbing Scarlett's hands, too hard with her thumb, and asking, "Is it really you? Who else would it be?" And, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" And more. She was fine, Scarlett had said, over and over. She hadn't been hurt, she hadn't been abused. Not that I can remember, she added now. That's the thing, I don't remember anything. Are the others back too? The woman was closing the blinds, drawing the curtains. Looped again now. Back in the hot air balloon, the heat coming off the flame, making the air wavy, unsure. "How do you know there are others?" Scarlett asked. "What happened? What's going on?" The woman stiffened. "Are they back or not?" "Yes, but no one remembers anything." The woman seemed not as confused. "Well, that's common. What could that possibly mean?" But then Scarlett looked at the papers on the table beside the sofa where she was sitting. Paranormal Underground Magazine, UFologist Monthly. The cover of Open Minds had a story called ETs and Religion. "Do you think we were abducted by aliens?" Scarlett asked. "You got any better ideas about where you've been all this time?" the woman asked with a bit of an edge. All this time. A person doesn't accumulate that many magazines in one night, or even a week. "How long was I gone exactly?" Scarlett asked, slowly, as a series of revelations clicked into place. She had never before sat on this couch. She had never before seen the cat that peeked out once but was now hiding under an armchair by the television. "You really don't know." The woman shook with tears. "You don't know?" "Know what?" The woman sat beside her on the sofa, took up her hand again. "You all disappeared 11 years ago." Scarlett put her hand away. The room spun around her. 1 spin, 2, 3 spins, 4. Who was this crazy person? 5 spins. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spins. "You couldn't be somewhere for 11 years and not remember. I always believed they'd bring you back." The woman put her hand to her heart and eyes towards the sky. "That we were chosen for this special thing for a reason." It was closing in on 2 a.m., according to the clock on the dining room wall, and Scarlett felt her body starting to shut down. Like the lights going off in a large building, wing by wing, fuse by fuse. Legs clunk out. Lungs clunk out. Head about to shut down, down, down. She suddenly wanted only to sleep. "I need to lie down." The woman said, "Of course," then wiped away tears and said she had to call some people to tell them the news. "Steve's never going to believe it," she muttered. Then she went into her bedroom with her cell phone. Scarlett lay on the couch, but it smelled of cat, so she got up and went down the other short hall to where she knew her room had been, and still was. Exactly as she left it. The life-size cardboard cutout of Glinda, the Good Witch from her Wizard of Oz-themed 5th birthday party. The purple hanging canopy adorned with butterflies and ribbons that created a little nook in the corner. The My Little Pony stickers on the wall. They seemed familiar. She liked the feeling. She wanted to run. Scarlett stretched out on a cupcake print comforter on her back, fingers laced over her belly as if in her own coffin. A mobile made out of wire and puffy plastic princess stickers hung from the ceiling. She stared at it and tried to remember something, tried to remember anything or everything. Long stripes of blue, green, red, and yellow with black stripes in between. The feeling of floating away, possibly forever. The wonder of it all, of a bird's eye view. Unable to sleep after maybe 20 minutes of lying there and drifting through the sky. Clouds, a flock of birds, below a river. Or she got up and went down the hall, through the living room, and out onto the terrace of the dining room. The beach, the golf, seemed to whisper an invitation. So she went down across the patio and through the gate and stepped out onto the sand. It was cool and soft beneath her bare feet. Down to the right, the shoreline was rainbow speckled, hotels amid colored night lights into the sky. The boom, boom, boom of a far-off dance party tempted her. She could run there, that way, until she found it. Found him. Wait, who? Lucas. Or she could fold into the crowd like she belonged there, maybe disappear again through some dance floor trap door. The water was calm, lake-like. Putting her feet into the warm surf, she looked down at her toes. When had they last felt the ocean? 11 years? Then looked up at the stars. Aliens? Really? So very many stars. She didn't think she'd visited any, but what did she know? Not much. No wonder her mother had had so many strange questions. Can I check you for scars? Are you still a virgin? Probably other people would too. Maybe answers would come in time. Or maybe it was better to forget. Because didn't this qualify as a happy ending? There's no place like home, even if home smells of cat dander and ashes and desperation. Right? Lucas. First came the ambulance, then the squad cars, then the bad news was confirmed. His father was dead. And the next question. Do you have ID? Pockets empty. No. You were just let go? Van, blindfold, taillight. And the others are back too? Scarlet, scar. What do you mean you don't remember? Carousel, beach, horse, spinning. The back of the police cruiser was at least quiet as they rode through town. Fort Myers Beach, Florida, he discerned from signs. The sidewalks bulged with college types out bar hopping. Cars crawled through the main intersection at town, even at 2 a.m. They were stopped in front of an aging hotel called the Tiki Tower, where the parking valets wore leis, totem poles flanked a fountain lit with blue and green spotlights. A group of girls in a white convertible were stuck in the same traffic, but in the opposite direction. They all had long ponytails and bikinis under their tank tops, and they were singing along, poorly, drunkenly, to some pop song Lucas didn't know. Two guys walking on the opposite sidewalk stopped, red plastic cups in their hands, and one of them shouted, "Ladies, where's the party?" So this is what he'd been missing. 11 years, the cop had said, 2/3 of his life. It didn't make any sense. He had to make sense of it. The car started to move again and passed a massive inflatable water slide on the beachfront side of the road, and then a bunch of tourist shops and restaurants and bars and sidekicks and massage parlors, and then finally they went up and over a steeply arched bridge. The view from the back seat turned into rooftops and distant marinas, and so Lucas closed his eyes. There'd been a shirt in one of the shop's windows that read, "Sun's out, guns out." What does that even mean? As the speed of the car picked up, he took a few deep breaths of warm, briny air. He felt free. The feeling was new, or maybe old. He felt his body preparing to weep, but felt it fighting it too. Why so much fight? His father was dead. Why not weep? The car stopped and the door opened. He was pulled out into the precinct, then escorted through the main halls, all eyes on him. Most of them, what? Suspicious? Confused? Surprised? He was in a room alone, locked in, actually. Was he accustomed to being locked up? Used to being alone? He had to have been imprisoned, right? For 11 years? The room started to spin, so he sat down. The horse, teeth yellowed, chipped. He let his head fall to the table, forehead first, heard the door click open. "You okay there?" "I will be," Lucas said, "when I get some sleep and some answers." Answers. Lucas looked up. A middle-aged detective who'd shaved what was obviously a balding head now sat across from him. He was thinner than seemed healthy, and something about his mouth seemed British, but he had no accent. He said, "I never thought I'd see the day." "What day is that?" Lucas asked. "I'm Mick Chambers. I was the lead investigator when you all went missing." He folded his hands together on the table in front of him. "I figured by now you were all, dead." Lucas reached down and checked his pulse on his wrist with two flat fingers. "Not dead. Yes, Chambers shook his head and smiled. I see that. Then he leaned forward, clearing his throat. This whole thing, the leaving, pretty much ruined my life. And that's supposed to be my problem? Lucas didn't have to put his fingers back on his wrist to know his pulse was quickening with irritation. The cops on the scene had called it that too, the leaving, right before cuffing him. Would they give that whole mess a catchy name too? The cuffing? No, Chambers said matter-of-factly, but this is all very strange. You have a reputation around here for being master of the obvious. Now he could almost feel the tapping of his wrist, blood boiling from the inside. Chambers smiled again, wider this time. Listen, Lucas, I don't need you to like me. I honestly couldn't care less. But I got guys who are going to be banging down that door right now in about 10 seconds. FBI, younger guys, hungrier guys. I may not even end up as the lead on this case, and there's not a lot I can do about it. So let me just ask you something. Fire away, Lucas said. If you were me, and there are a bunch of kids who were abducted years ago, and when they came back, just showed up, they said they didn't remember anything about 10 plus years, would you believe them? He pictured the others, wondered whether Scarlett was having a better homecoming. How could she not? Was she his girlfriend? Would you? Chambers pressed. Probably not. And if one of them was at the scene of an accident the very night he happened to come back, and it turned out his father was dead, would you believe it was an accident? That free feeling was now officially gone. I didn't kill my father. Then with a raised voice, why would I kill my father? You might have your reasons. I have no idea who you actually are. Lucas leaned forward, am the person who's going to figure out what happened. Figure out who did this. His blood seemed to cool at the idea of it. Oh yeah? Chambers stood? Well, good. You be sure to give me a call when you got it all sorted. Knocks on the door came right before it opened, and two men flashed badges. Chambers said, He's all yours, and left. Avery flushed the toilet. She'd held it off as long as she could out there on the porch and washed her hands, then stopped in the hallway outside the shrine and decided to call Sam, who was her boyfriend. Why was she always reminding herself of that? It was possible she needed to remind herself he was her first actual boyfriend and the concept was still fresh. More likely there was another reason, but she wasn't ready to admit that quite yet. He might not even pick up so late, or was it so early? But this was the sort of thing that you woke people up for, especially if they were your boyfriend. As the line rang, she went into her brother's room and lay down on his Scooby-Doo bedspread. Apparently he'd loved that show, and supposedly she'd watched it with him, but she didn't remember. When she'd gone back to watch some episodes a few years ago, she found Shaggy annoying. Hey, Sam said sleepily when he answered. Hey, she said, beneath a sky of glow-in-the-dark constellations. Everything okay? They're back. She'd spotted the Big Dipper on the ceiling, my brother and the other kids. What? That quickly he was wide awake. Well, he's not back, and they're the Little Dipper. Not yet, but we've heard they're back. No way, he said. I know. The bed smelled lonely. My mom's sitting on the front steps, waiting. She heard that they don't remember anything. How is that even possible? Sam said. I have no idea. It's all just crazy, right? Sam had only moved to Fort Myers a few years ago, so he didn't really understand how crazy it was, not having lived through it all the way like everyone else had. Not the way she and Ryan had. Sam had seen the movies, but that was all. Avery didn't actually remember much about the day it happened. She'd only been 4 years old, but she learned everything she needed to know eventually. For starters, her parents had given her endless lectures about strangers. They still did, and why she should fear them, because she didn't want to end up like her brother, abducted by some crazy guy and held hostage somewhere, or worse, killed or sold on some foreign sex slave back market, did she? And, sorry, Av, but we're not sugarcoating this for you. This is your reality. The world is a horrible place. The boogeyman and Slender Man may not be real, but there are worse, real things to fear. And not just guns and ISIS, but quiet, messed up people who can take a bunch of kids and make them go poof. When she was old enough, she went online. She knew about a small bus a few people saw behind the school that day, and the bus company claimed no knowledge of it. She'd read about the search parties in all the nearby swamps and on beaches, the accusations thrown at the school security guard, the lawsuits filed against the school district and the bus company. Her parents had initiated the claims, and the suicide, a few weeks later, of the school principal. She had also read countless supposedly moving profiles of each of the kids, which said dumb things like how they loved music and sports and playgrounds and princesses and all had sparkling personalities. Of course they did. They were 5. Avery had even been on TV the day it happened. She watched the clip once, then never again. Her 4-year-old self clinging to her once beloved woof woof and saying, "I really want Max to come home." Brutal. Now she was impatient for him to get on with it. She said, "What do you think is taking him so long?" and knew it sounded ridiculous. Scarlett. Back up on the terrace, the woman, her mother, was waiting for her, holding pajamas. "The night before you disappeared," she said, "you told me you were going on a trip. Your exact words were that you were going to the leaving. Do you remember that?" Scarlett closed her eyes. "I don't." She opened them, "and we just disappeared? Like, how? Did you look for us?" "Of course." Now looking tight, defensive. "It was the first real day of kindergarten." "What does that mean, real day?" "The first day all the kindergartners went to school. They do a staggered start, with some of the kids going one day, then the rest another day. So it was the first day all the kindergartners were there together. And at the end of the day, you weren't on the bus like you were supposed to be. People say there was a bus at school, like a small one, a short bus, that you all got on, but never found it. But I knew right away it was something else. Some people spotted a craft up by Venice." "A spaceship?" "Yes, ma'am." The wind blew a few strands of Scarlett's hair into her mouth, and she pulled them away. "Do other people think that? Aliens?" "Everyone has their own ideas. Come on, I'll show you." Soon, newspaper clippings were spread out of the dining room table. Article after article about the mysterious abduction, many of them beginning with lines like, "Just months after a school shooting that took the lives of 15 children, another tragedy has rocked the town of Fort Myers Beach. Awful, but not her problem." In a photo array, she recognized her younger self among the victims of the leaving. They called it the leaving? The woman, her mother, nodded, and showed her a glossy page ripped from a magazine. "Because of what you said, yeah." Reading from the page, directed by, starring, there was a movie? There have been a couple, none of them any good. Scarlett reached for her own hair and pulled it. "We were 5 years old. We didn't leave." The mother stared at her for a minute, then reached out and put a palm on her cheek. "I always knew they'd bring my baby back." Scarlett said slowly, "We got him out of a van tonight." "A van." Her mother snatched her hand away. "You should rest," then started gathering up articles and returning them to a folder on the kitchen island. But Scarlett was looking back at the photos of the victims and counting and, wait, 6 photos. One of her, then Lucas, Kristen, Sarah, Adam. She pointed at the last one, more confused than ever before. "Who's Max Goddard?" "Lucas." He hadn't even wanted to go back to the house, but that was where the agents dropped him off, and he didn't have any better ideas. A light above the front door sensed him and turned on, and Moss seemed to materialize just to the flit of its light. The door was locked, the inside lights all off. He knocked, then again, more loudly. Then when nothing happened. Then again. There were 3 cars parked beside the house. Knocked one more time and the door swung open. She had blonde hair and her eyes were too far apart, and her t-shirt, the only thing she was wearing, legs long and tan, red, brunettes have more fun. She stared at him for a moment, then called out, "Ryan?" They waited. A moth flew at her and she ducked. "So you're the brother." "And you are," he said. "The girlfriend?" Her stare was unflinching, unnerving really. "Miranda." "You think I could come in?" he asked. "I don't know." Then louder, "Ryan." A voice from down the hall, "Let him in." Lucas stepped past her and into the living area, just as Ryan appeared and sat on the couch. Lucas sat at the other end. Miranda inserted herself between them. "I don't even know what to say." Ryan rubbed his face with both palms. "What happened? You escaped." "What?" Lucas mirrored his brother's gestures. "I guess we were let go. There was a van that dropped us off. We had maps to help us get home." "Why now?" Ryan was shaking his head. "Where were you? Who had you?" "I don't know. I don't remember anything." Lucas looked at his brother for a long minute and thought Ryan's eyes had the exact same color and tilt as the ones he saw reflected back in the mirrors, though he couldn't remember the last time he'd looked in a mirror. "Well, who was driving the van?" Miranda asked. "I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like we woke up on the van right before we got off." Ryan was staring at him, and then he said, "I really have no idea what to say to you. It feels unreal, and now Dad, dead. Didn't even know how to feel. Losing something that had already been lost. I didn't kill him," he said. You have to believe that." "I don't know what to believe," Ryan said, now covering his face with his hands, shaking his head. "It's insane, and I guess I have to call people, and what do I even say? Well, there's good news and bad news. Lucas is back, but Dad's dead." Then he looked up and said, "Actually, who do I even call? Dad's parents are dead, Mom's parents are dead. They were both only children, so I guess cross making phone calls off the list." "They had no one?" "I go for a bunch of tests tomorrow, so maybe someone can figure out what's happening." Lucas leaned forward, head tilting down, the dizziness starting up again. Carousel, ocean, golden horse teeth. He tried to push past or through it. "They took blood and all to check for drugs in my system because I actually do have one really vivid image stuck in my head. And I don't know if it's a hallucination or what's going on." "What?" Miranda perked up. "What is it?" "Round and round. Riding on a carousel by the ocean." Ryan stood up. "You remember a carousel ride, but not who took you for 11 years? What about me? Do you remember me?" "Fighting, baseball, wrestling, running, frogs, kids, sun. Do you remember Mom?" "Smiling, sunglasses, white teeth, freckled skin, black hair." "And Mom dying?" "Metal, skid marks, sirens." "Do you remember Dad? Because I barely remember him before he went off the deep end with the rocks myself." Lucas couldn't form an answer. The rocks. The deep end. Off it. Horse teeth. Kneading. Polishing. "What is it?" Lucas asked. "The rocks." "That's Opus 6, Dad's life work. His Song for the Missing. He said he was going to keep building it in tribute until y'all came home." "I don't understand," Lucas said, vaguely recalling that his father had been a builder and dabbled in sculpture. "6? For the 6 of you." "No," like someone was manually spinning his brain. 5. "Who didn't come back?" Ryan asked. "How should I know?" Lucas near screamed. "This gets better by the minute." Ryan shook his head and stood. "I always thought I'd be happy to see you," and left the room. After a moment, Miranda said, "He'll come around." Lucas lifted his head. She turned to face him squarely, stared at him as though clear glass was holding back some exhibitive oddity on the other side. "You really don't remember anything?" She waved a hand in front of his face like it might wake him up from a trance. "I'll get sheets for you," she said finally. "There's a room down the hall." "Thanks," he said. "I need a shower." "There's towels on the shelf behind the door." She walked off. The water wasn't hot enough to wash away the day. The skin beneath his right hip bone burned where he turned to face the shower head. He looked down, saw blood, black ink, angry, puffy skin. Had to sit down, afraid he might pass out. Had to take a few deep breaths, then look again and saw this. Avery. The sun arrived right on time, at least, and nosy body Mrs. Golden took her yippy dogs out for the early morning walks and stopped at the foot of the circular driveway. "Everything okay?" Avery smiled and waved. "Yes, beautiful morning." She should call Ryan to see whether Lucas had come back yet, but they hadn't spoken at all these past few years. Not since Avery had started high school and decided to reinvent herself and stop letting the past be such a part of her life. They should probably call Dad too, but maybe it'd be better to wait until it wasn't a really ungodly hour out west, or to wait until her brother was actually there. The mailman came and put a bundle in their Pelican mailbox, but neither Avery nor her mom went to get it. Mom didn't even get up once to put real clothes on or make coffee or use the bathroom or answer the phone, which rang a lot more than usual. When it was normal time, Avery went inside and popped some bread in the toaster, texting Emma about the weirdness while she waited and getting suitably shocked replies like, "Oh my god, and what?" She brought her mom a piece of toast with jam. "You should call Dad," she said. "We'll call him together." She frowned at the toast. "When he gets here." A van turned onto the street, and for a second Avery wished it was the Mystery Machine. Scooby-Doo and his crew could crack the case for sure. But no, of course not. It was a news van. Avery really should have called or at least texted her dad. He needed to get on the next plane home. The phone rang, and this time it somehow sounded more urgent. Avery ran over and picked it up, hoping it was her dad, and if not him, at least someone who would explain the delay. "Hello? Avery? Dad." "Is it true?" he asked. "They're back? I just got a crazy call from Adam's father, something about us needing to get in front of this in terms of the news." Avery's mom came to the open doorway, hope lighting her shiny eyes. Some of them are back, yeah," Avery said in the phone, "but no signs of Max yet." Her mom sank to her knees on the foyer rug and began to sob. Avery saw a flash of her mother's fleshy white thigh inside her robe and had to look away. "I'll get there as fast as I can, Ave," her dad said. "Move mountains." Avery hung up and went to her mom and knelt beside her, pulling her robe close and then easing her into a stiff hug. Her mother turned mannequin, unfeeling. Right then, a reporter reached the front porch, trailed by a camera guy, and said, "Tell us your story. Why do you think Max is the only one who didn't come back?" Avery used her foot to push the door shut and pictured the days ahead. The endless news coverage, the weird, sad look she'd get from the neighbors and everyone at school next week. She'd be famous, but not in the right way. Mannequin Mom would end up in the hospital again, quicksanding into depression, and Dad would act like there's nothing wrong when everything about Mom, about all of them, was wrong, and had been, probably since the day Max had disappeared. After a minute, there was a gap in her mom's crying. In the silence, Avery had a weird feeling of wishing she'd never stopped talking to Ryan. One of the only people who had ever understood or started things up was Sam, who was far too nice with her, or too simple or something, or given up hoping that her brother was still alive. "Scooby-Doo, where are you?" "We'll find him, Mom." Avery stared at her worn flip-flops and wondered when the new one she'd ordered would arrive. "I promise." So that's where we're going to leave off for today. So on Wednesday, we'll pick up with day 1, and this will continue every day. We'll just read one part until we finish. So make sure that you guys watch the lessons for today and are liking the videos for the lessons so that way I can mark you off for participation.